there's a lot of talks about open relationships right now.
Poly, yeah.
Yeah, what is this story with open relationships?
I think that is sort of the adaptation that's going on right now, because a lot of, like, as you were just looking at the traditional marriage, like where it's one man, one woman, they get together, they have 2 kids and a golden retriever in the front yard, right? That is a dying model. That is an old order model. It's a 20th century model. Today, in the 21st century, in the social media era, women are exposed to the paradox of choice, right? It's all you have to do is go on your cell phone and go on Tinder, and like there's far more guys on Tinder than there are women on Tinder. So this sort of gives this idea that women have a higher threshold when it comes to, like, attention, or when from other guys. So there is the idea, anyways. This is in theory anyhow, is that poly is an adaptation for the situation that's going on between, like, what used to be just sort of the nuclear family right now. So when a woman, for instance, when we're talking about poly works differently for both guys, for men and for women. So when we think of poly, we think of one guy who's like, yeah, man, I got 3 girls here. This is great. Like, guys want to have that variety. They want to have, like, the 3 ways or whatever it is. The common fantasy. So we think of poly in those terms, but when we look at it in a modern sense, poly really kind of comes down to who's the most attractive and who can leverage it the most. In today's society, it's women that can leverage it the most, because they're the ones that get the most attention online in a social media perspective. Again, going back to those stats, I had them here just a second ago, but it was if you look at how couples met from like 1950 all the way to 2020. And you look at, like, friends and family, school, church, whatever else it is, and you look at just, like, how low those numbers are right now, and there's one huge spike right now, and maybe he'll pick it at that huge spike right there. That's online dating, and that is that's only in, like, the last, like, 10 to 15 years right there. That is what you want to know why poly is so popular? That's why poly is so popular.
So let's look at that.
Because of online dating, you're saying?
But,
because of choice, because even just the presumption of choice.
And I'm sure that's even higher, because that's 2017.
Send me that on Slack.
So through friends, 33% to 20%. Bar restaurant went from 19% to 27%. So that went higher. I'm sure it's lower for COVID, because ain't nobody going to bars during COVID.
Right.
At work, it went from 19 to 11%. Does that mean people are no longer working? School, college from 19 to 9%. Through family, 15 to 70%. Wow, so they're no longer going to Thanksgiving. So going back to what we're talking about with this whole thing about availability, right? We looked at a stat a couple months ago, if you remember the stat, where the percentage of folks who were getting married online versus through family, it was 7 times higher. Do you remember that stat? Do you remember that stat we talked about?
There's an article we covered. People that meet online are more likely to get divorced, and people who meet through friends or family are the most likely to stay married.
Yeah. So people who meet online are more likely to get a divorce than people who meet through friends and family. And I think friends and family was the highest, if I'm not mistaken, right? Friends and family, and it was work. Why do you think that is? Why do you think divorce is higher for online than friends and family?
Okay, well, again, it's you're spoiled for choice. That's first and foremost. You have to look at the people. Well, that's the one. That's actually what I was looking at right there. If you look at that spike, that really dramatic spike right there, and when did that start? Right around 2000. Can't see it from here.
1999.
Yeah, 1999, all the way up to where we're at right now.
Yeah. AOL chat is where
I see a lot of people.
Yeah, but is that groundbreaking? That's like saying social media is where people are doing with their time.
Well, what he's saying is
TV wasn't.
What he's saying is availability, access.
Our understanding, our expectations of marriage, our expectations of forming a relationship are based on pre-2000 standards. I'm Gen X, you're Gen X, I believe. But even if you're millennial right now, you still remember an age in the 90s. If you watched an episode of Friends, that's the old order way we used to do relationships. We still have this expectation, this ideal of this 20th century model for relationships in an age where we look at a dramatic spike like that in how people meet online. And again, you can't just take that one data point and just like say this is it.
Yeah.
There's all other interrelated data points that go along with that. You're also looking at men who are falling out of the Lost Boys generation, the guys who are not getting laid right now because I'm looking at the GSS study right now. men are far more sexless today than at any other time in history, any other generation in history.
These are the whole incel concept.
Well, it is. It's the incel concept, but it's also statistically a reality.
Yeah, my friend David's dealing with
something
like that.
It's like 28%. I just read this thing. It's 28% of men below the age of 30 are sexless. They're still either virgins.
What was that number again?
28% of men below the age of 30, up to 30, are sexless.
What can those guys do? Is this some of the big the triad make more money?
Yeah,
build
money
more
muscles game. Yeah, and I mean that's if you want a prescription, that's where I would go to. Mm-hmm. However, that data point set against this stuff, you're going to ask me why is poly a big deal? Why is it now we're not getting married? Why is well, of course, divorce rates are lower now as well because nobody's getting married. And so we're looking for alternatives to that right now. We're looking for alternative ways of forming families. And I think we're kind of doing a piss poor job of it right now because we're still thinking that we can get back to this 20th century model for relationships in an age where 28% of men below 30 aren't getting any, and we're looking at how are they finding each other. Okay, also look at what's the demographics and what are the numbers of men versus women on those dating apps to begin with. It's mostly men and like an ocean of men and like a very few select set of women who are getting those responses.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.